Magandang umaga, Filipinos. Good morning. You're watching Eagle News Mornings from Canada. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, reporting from our Eagle News studio in the western Canadian province of Alberta. My city is Edmonton, and we're here this morning to bring you news and commentary from across the country. Thursday morning, one more day to go before the weekend, and hopefully you got some time off. You can enjoy things for a couple of days. Let's have a look at the weather, though, for today in Metro Manila. Keep your raincoat and umbrella handy. AccuWeather forecasting periods of rain, a thunderstorm sometime today, another thunderstorm forecast for this evening, about a 70% chance of precip and drip today. Expect a high of 28 degrees. That's going to feel like 34. Currently, we've got clouds, 25 degrees, feels like 32. The air quality, fair. So take it easy if you're going out there if you have breathing difficulties. Well, we've got that second pot of coffee made already, so grab yourself your second cup. Sit back, relax, and I'll tell you what's happening in Canada. First, a look at the weather across the country and our street scene today. This is Mill Bay in British Columbia. Now, Mill Bay, first of all, thank you to Mark Spencer Herrera for that shot. Mill Bay is just outside the capital of Victoria. It's on Vancouver Island, about 30 minutes outside of Victoria. Across Canada today, the temperatures continue to be warm in most of the country, pretty moderate, though, on the west coast. We begin in Victoria, where it's sunny and 19. Vancouver, 22 with sunshine. But as we head west to Alberta, it warms up. Edmonton, it's sunny, 26 degrees here. Calgary, mainly sunny and 23. In Saskatchewan now, Regina has clouds, 26 degrees. Saskatoon, partly cloudy and 28. Winnipeg, partly cloudy and 25. Toronto, now it's hot there. Mostly cloudy, 29 degrees. Ottawa, partly cloudy, 26. Montreal, it's cooled off a bit there. Mostly cloudy and 23. But that heat wave in Atlantic Canada continues. Fredericton, mostly cloudy and 28. 30 degrees in Halifax. Clouds in the sky there. And St. John's, Newfoundland, considerably cooler, mostly cloudy, 15 degrees. And that's a look at the weather in Canada. Here are some of the stories we're following today. Canada is dawdling on pre-ordering COVID-19 vaccine doses. COVID-19 apparently affects more than just the lungs, according to a couple of medical studies. How well has Canada done in controlling the spread of the virus? Oh, there's a shortage of $50 bills in Canada. Temperature checks will be mandatory at Canada's 4 largest airports. And an online recruiting service says a full recovery could take a couple of years. You know, gold prices have gone up, and that's good news for the mining industry in our country. Unknown seeds are being sent anonymously, and, there's going to be military exercises over the city of Toronto. Well, here's a question. Why hasn't Canada followed the lead of the United States and Europe and pre-ordered doses of COVID-19 vaccine? Experts are fearing that the longer we wait, the less chance of getting enough, or in fact, maybe any of the vaccine that's developed. The federal government has pledged more than $1 billion into research for a vaccine, but nothing has been pre-ordered from foreign pharmaceuticals. We've heard of how COVID-19 affects, we've heard of how COVID-19 affects the respiratory system. People with serious cases had to be put on ventilators to help them breathe. Now doctors are telling us the virus can harm other organs in the body, including the heart. This was the subject of 2 studies by researchers. They found that the virus can cause an inflammation of the heart muscle, which can weaken it. Clearly, still a lot to learn about this infection. Well, Canada's getting top marks from the head of the World Health Organization for the way it has handled the pandemic. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus has congratulated Canada, China, Germany, and the Republic of Korea for bringing large outbreaks under control. He says, what sets these countries apart is they had the willpower to act. They imposed strict measures to prevent the spread. Since the pandemic began, Canada's reported nearly 115,000 cases, and the virus has claimed almost 9,000 lives. Well, we'll be telling you more about this a little bit later on in the program, but a note here that Toronto has tightened its mask bylaw. They'll become mandatory in common areas and lobbies of apartment buildings and condos, also in elevators and laundry rooms. Building owners have been told to put up the appropriate signs. Exemptions, of course, granted for people who cannot wear masks for medical reasons. That rule goes into effect on August the 5th, and we'll have more on possible loosening of restrictions in Toronto a little bit later on in the program. Now, in my city today, City Council determined that face masks should become mandatory in all indoor public spaces. This will begin on Saturday. Failure to wear one could cost a person $100. City officials, hoping an education program will work, they say they only want to use enforcement as a last resort. The exceptions, children under 2. People exercising indoors, obviously swimming pools, people unable to wear a mask because of medical reasons. Now, as well, masks won't be required in houses of worship. Also exempt, schools and daycares. In the resort community of Banff in the Rocky Mountains, masks are mandatory both indoors and out. That ordinance goes into effect Friday, so people traveling to Banff, if you're walking down the street, you gotta wear a mask. And of course, there are those people who are opposed to those requirements. They just don't feel the need to be part of society. Protecting others violates their freedoms. And some are joining forces with groups opposed to vaccinations. One group says it's even getting training from an anti-vaccine group. They're getting it online. There's a group in the U.S. on how to spread their message. And probably at the same time, spread the virus. In central Alberta, about 500 people who have no regard for anybody gathered for a massive bush party. It was out in the woods. Police kept busy for about 12 hours responding to complaints of property damage, loud partying noise, fireworks being set off, just a nuisance to nearby people on acreages, farms. At a time when cases of infection are on the increase, it's the nicest thing you can say. It's an act of ignorance. Manitoba giving its frontline workers a financial thank you. Premier Brian Pallister says people who worked in healthcare, transportation, and social services, well, he's giving them a $1,500 check. That works out to a little more than 55,000 pesos, about 78,000 people eligible for that money. Well, Canadians have been hoarding more than toilet paper during the pandemic. The Bank of Canada says it's running out of $50 bills. The bank says there's a larger than usual demand for the banknotes, but isn't sure why it's just the 50s that people want. Demand for the bills is at its highest level in 5 years. Interesting, while people have been withdrawing more cash, there are fewer places to spend it. Cash is no longer king. Many businesses accepting only debit cards or credit cards. Others are encouraging people to avoid paying in cash. And this is a worldwide problem. In fact, in the U.S., the U.S. Federal Reserve says down there's a shortage of coins, nickels and dimes. People are taking the money out, but because businesses won't accept cash, the money stays in their pockets rather than going back into circulation. Domestic passengers flying out of Canada's four largest international airports will have their temperatures checked as they pass through security. The screening being done in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal. There have been a growing number of flights that have carried passengers with COVID-19. Last week, the government said at least 30 flights in the country had at least one confirmed case on board. And we're dealing with this problem domestically. Airline and airport executives from Europe want the Canadian government to remove restrictions that discourage international air travel. Things like the 14-day quarantine. They've written the federal government saying, we're easing up in Europe. Well, what about you guys? Canada's entry restrictions and quarantine requirements, they wrote, and these are their words, are problematic. You see, our borders are also closed to non-citizens except essential workers, few exceptions in there. The executives say Canada can't remain isolated forever. I don't recall anybody saying we're going to be isolated forever. It's just now is not the time. You don't need to put the health of the country at risk to prop up European airlines. Thankfully, the government to date has dismissed repeated calls to relax air travel restrictions to selected countries. Job postings on the recruitment site Indeed Canada, down by nearly a third from last year. Although the number of listings is increasing every month, the company says it's going to take a few years to get back to those pre-pandemic levels. Economists at Oxford Economics agree they predict a full recovery is about 2 years off. And for the hospitality and tourism sectors, recovery could take even longer. I don't know about you, but for us, it's going to be a while before we travel again. Take a cruise or something like that. I don't know. Do you feel safe getting on board an airliner right now? Not sure. Well, job growth has been strong over the past couple of months. That's expected to taper off in the fall. But if there's a second wave of infections, that could nullify the recovery. Again, people will be out of work. Oh, by the way, Statistics Canada set to release the latest employment numbers tomorrow. The price of gold, just under $2,000 an ounce. That's in US dollars. That's more than $2,600 Canadian money, more than 95,000 pesos Philippine money. The increased price, good news for the Canadian mining industry, because not only have gold prices gone up, but so have other metals such as copper and nickel. And this increase is bringing investors back to the mining industry. Projects that were on hold now being activated. That's going to create hundreds of jobs. And these are high value jobs, big wages. You know what happens? People with big wages, they spend big money. All good news for the economy. A number of people in Canada have been receiving packages of seeds in the mail, seeds that they did not order. It's not clear what these seeds are or where they were sent from. Canada's Food Inspection Agency telling people don't open them and definitely do not plant them. You see, what can happen is they could be invasive species and could seriously damage the country's plant ecosystem. People who receive the seeds have been told to hang on to them, contact the agency immediately, a regional office, wait for an inspector to pick them up. No word on how many people have reported them to the agency. Oh, here's something to watch for over the skies of Toronto tomorrow. Canadian and American fighter pilots, well, they're going to be conducting military training over the city. Fighter jets from both countries will practice response procedures. Pilots, well, they're conducting a mock interception of a civilian aircraft over the city. That should be something to watch. NORAD said in a tweet it's part of the training exercises to keep the military ready to respond to aerospace threats 24/7. The exercises will involve some CF-18 and F-16 fighter jets, as well there'll be a Boeing KC-135 refueling tanker. Really something to watch for tomorrow over the skies of Toronto. If you're just joining us, say it's 7:15 in Manila. You're watching Eagle News Mornings from Canada.
Sa tagapamahalang pangkalahatan ng Iglesia ni Cristo, ka Eduardo B. Manalo, sa ating mga kasamahan at kababayang bahagi ng Iglesia ni Cristo, ako at ang Dumper PTDA Party List ay ipinapaabot ang aming taos-pusong pagbati sa ika-106 na anibersaryo ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Sa loob ng mahigit na 1 taon, naging mahalagang bahagi na ang INC sa paghubog hindi lamang sa sektor ng transportasyon sa Pilipinas, kung hindi pati na mismo sa kasaysayan ng ating bansa. Naway sa susunod na 100 taon, patuloy na magsilbi ang Iglesia ni Cristo bilang isang matatag na haligi sa ating lipunan at patuloy na maging kinatawan ng kabutihan, pakikipagtulungan at masigasig na pagsulong sa kaunlaran ng ating bayan. Muli, happy 106th anniversary sa ating mga kasamahan, mga kababayan, mga kapatid sa Iglesia ni Cristo.
This is Eagle News Mornings from Canada. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, 17 minutes past 7 o'clock in Metro Manila. Good morning. It's 25 degrees. The Ontario government has started to replace its aging nursing homes. You recall we had stories showing that many of them had deplorable conditions. With more on that story, Eagle News correspondent Sabrina De Los Reyes.
Accelerated Build pilot program, a new long-term care home will be built at the Lakeridge Health's Ajax Pickering Hospital starting immediately. Here is Premier Doug Ford with the announcement.
And today, I'm thrilled to announce another brand new project to accelerate the building of 322 new long-term care beds right here in Durham region. That's 320 brand new beds delivered by the end of 2021. That's 320 more seniors who will have access to the care they deserve by the end of next year.
This program is part of Ontario's plan to build new long-term care homes across the province that are modernized and will enhance the comfort and life of seniors in long-term care homes. This is all an effort to repair Ontario's long-term care system that has been a consistent issue, especially amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
We will never forget this difficult chapter in our history, some of the darkest days we have ever faced as a province. But when we look back, this period will not be defined by the virus. This period will be defined by the everyday heroes. Those who came together, those who stood together to protect their most vulnerable. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Last week, the pilot program was launched in Mississauga, which is currently in the process of building 640 new beds. In Ajax, the province intends to build 320 new long-term care beds by 2021, which will also allow for the accommodation of those who are currently in the province's waitlist for long-term care space. Here is Minister of Long-Term Care, Dr. Marilee Fullerton, with the details.
The shortage of long-term care beds across the province puts added strain on our healthcare system as thousands of people are currently in hospitals awaiting their next home.
The project to build modernized long-term care facilities includes features like air conditioning and private or semi-private rooms. The accelerated plan is intended to be completed by 2021, a much shorter time frame than the usual length of building a long-term care home. Take a look.
Currently, it takes approximately 36 months to build a long-term care home once a site and financing has been secured. And through a range of enabling measures such as modular design and construction, rapid procurement, increased construction times to lessen the duration of construction, and the use of hospital lands, we are targeting occupancy of this new long-term care home in 2021.
Here in Ontario, the accelerated building of long-term care homes and the aim towards their modernization is a key step in repairing the province's long-term care system, which has failed overall in providing all senior Ontarians with the proper care and space they need. With the help of the government and the province's long-term care and health system partners, seniors in Ontario will finally be able to receive the proper care they all deserve. In Toronto, Sabrina Solono de los Reyes, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Well, I told you a little bit earlier about Toronto tightening the restrictions on its face mask bylaw. They're also going to be loosening some restrictions. And joining me live now from Toronto, Eagle News anchor Marco Zeruto. Marco, tell us about what's opening up a little bit in the city there.
Good morning, Manila. Good morning, Tom. That's right. Toronto and Peel region are two of the final three regions in Ontario that are finally getting the go-ahead starting Friday to move into stage 3, with Windsor-Essex being the lone region still waiting to open. And what that means is restaurants will now be able to open up as long as they follow proper protocols. And more facilities like gyms and other fitness centers are able to also open, along with a host of other facilities that can open. So this is great news for the city, just so that people can get out. But of course, the main underlying rule is always, whatever you do, let's continue to practice proper precautions, and let's all be responsible so we can continue to progress as we handle this pandemic.
Marco, I got to ask you, is the city really ready for this? I mean, this was one of the hot spots, and, you know, it's still pretty iffy.
Yeah, I mean, when we listen to what is actually going to be opening and what rules they have to follow, just for example, for restaurants, if you are willing, if you want to take that risk and actually go inside a restaurant now and eat, in a public setting, one of the rules that we hear is if you do sit down, you have to stay sitting down the entire time you are in the restaurant. The only time you're actually allowed to get up is if you are going to the washroom, paying your bill, or if you're leaving. So even those who want to go to the restaurants, they have these new rules they have to try to get used to. But the restaurants themselves, are they ready? You know, if there's a lineup outside, like how do we handle all of these specific, unique situations? Wait and see approach, and we'll see how it will unfold starting Friday.
Well, even further, when you ask, are they ready? I know the experience here in Alberta. A number of them just said, no, we're going to remain closed for a little bit, see how things go. What's the situation in Toronto? What's the feeling?
I mean, when we're talking about them finally opening, I guess the million or the billion-dollar question is, you know, are these restaurants, are these businesses ready? Because Toronto being one of, if not the biggest economic engine in Canada, you know, we need this kind of activity to flow. Even though we've moved into stage 2, that means about 90% of the economic activity is happening. You know, all of these different restrictions and all of these different rules, and everyone being in lockdown the last few months, it's left everyone uneasy. Will they spend money? Will there be any kind of transaction, even though businesses are open? Like you said earlier, with even in a residential building, something as simple as wearing a mask, you know, will they be wearing it, wearing gloves, proper precautions? Like you reported yesterday, Doug Ford was very upset with a bunch of yahoos trying to not practice being responsible. So on one hand, we're trying to progress, we're trying to open, we're trying to let everyone ease into this. But then the other end, you know, if we're not responsible, this is going to take a lot longer than it should.
One last question, and an opinion here. Is this too fast, too slow, or like in Goldilocks, just right?
You know, there isn't really a one-size-fits-all answer. I mean, they're waiting next week. They're going to be announcing about schools with businesses being open. It's just once everyone is allowed now to go out, will they? And if they, will they be responsible? And just seeing how the world is right now unfolding with the different rules that's in place, it really is a wait-and-see approach on how Torontonians, how the citizens here will react. And even like you said earlier, if they relax the rules, if there's tourists here, you know, how is all that going to happen? Even with the NHL, you know, my Leafs are here playing. They won their first game against the Habs. But, you know, we'll see what happens with all of these people hopefully being allowed to open, all these business, I should say, and then with everyone being allowed to go there. Hopefully we'll all be responsible and we'll get through this together quickly.
Thanks for joining us, Marco, and keep us posted. Well, the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving's attitude of gratitude continues. You know, he's launched $1.5 million fund for WNBA players who opted to sit out the season either due to coronavirus concerns or social justice reasons. And Here to tell us more about it, EBC sports reporter Tenny Sumagi. Good morning, Tenny.
Good morning, Tom. And yes, Kyrie Irving is doing good to those who need it. On Monday, he recently launched the Kai Empowerment Initiative to supplement the income of WNBA players who opted to sit out the 2020 season. The program also provides players a financial literacy program created by the investment banking company UBS. WNBA superstar and good friend Sue Bird weighs in on her friend's generosity.
I think Kyrie is just the kind of guy that he sees outside of himself a lot of times, extremely unselfish, and this is just another example of that. You know, obviously, everyone sees the big number, 1.5 million, and they can get caught up in that. But to me, I think what I love about it is, the opportunity that all of us as WNBA players will have if we want to take courses in financial literacy, and that goes beyond, just a one-time offering. It goes well beyond that. And I think what he's trying to do is help support women, help support the WNBA, not just now, but long term. And it's, it's admirable. Yeah, I think Kyrie is just the kind of guy.
For more on the NBA and WNBA, tune into Eagle News for your daily dose of highlights. In New York, Tenny Sumagi, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
I kind of like that, financial literacy, something they don't teach a lot of, but that's a good thing that he's doing that. We should have that in public schools, financial literacy. But anyway, let's get back to the sport. Your thoughts, first of all, on Kyrie's first. It was a short season with the Brooklyn Nets. Your thoughts on that? We're turning this into opinion today.
Well, because it was a short season due to his shoulder injury, and his first game, and I was there covering his first game as a Brooklyn Net, was amazing. He exploded for 50 points, and the crowd he's a hometown favorite. He grew up across the Hudson River in West Orange, New Jersey, a true Jersey boy, and so the energy in Barclays Center was just amazing. And I would probably grade his first season a B+, only because he didn't play much because of his injury, and we really haven't seen his leadership abilities. They're just getting used to him being there, and now that the Nets have a new coach, we haven't seen what head coach Jacques Vaughn can do with a 6-time All-Star.
I was going to ask you quickly, you got 30 seconds. What do you think his future as a leader is in the Nets?
It's to be determined, and it all depends on how his chemistry with Kevin Durant and the other players. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen in Brooklyn, because New York needs really great basketball to kind of alleviate the drama that's happening with the New York Knicks.
As always, thank you for joining us this morning. And that's our program for today. On behalf of the Canadian News team, I wish you all good health. Take care of others. Take care of yourselves. Stay home. Stay safe. Stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and other current affairs. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Stay tuned for Anung Senyo.